Hey, what's up, hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Kayla, and today we are gonna go thrifting to see if we can find some cottagecore pieces at the thrift. Hey guys, hello, I hope you're all doing well. Happy New Year. It is officially 2021. Let's pray that this year is better than the last. So I had you guys vote over on the community tab which aesthetic you guys wanted to see me thrift for next, and vintage and cottagecore were pretty much neck and neck. So today I am at a different Goodwill from one that I normally go to. I have been to this one once or twice before, and I've actually found some really cool vintage gems here, but I did want to see if we could find some cool cottagecore things here as well. So first and foremost, before we jump into the store, what the heck even is cottagecore? So a lot of you guys might have seen it pop off over the summer. It is an aesthetic that originated on Tumblr and then sort of migrated onto TikTok, and I feel like that's sort of when it became very popular. Now, from my perspective and like the research I've been doing, there's sort of two main schools of thought when it comes to cottagecore. There's the sort of love shack fancy pastels, puffy sleeves, ditzy florals, very like soft girl sort of color schemes version of cottagecore. And then there's the more like Pride and Prejudice, earth tones, pinafores, vintage inspired, like ruffled aprons cottagecore. So personally, I like both of these, but I do think I gravitate more toward, or at least right now, I'm gravitating more towards like the earth tones. I think it definitely depends on the time of year, how I'm feeling, like seasonally, depends on what I'm more interested in wearing. So at the moment, I'm definitely more drawn to the more earth tones. In the summer, I definitely played a lot with like the pastel sort of shabby chic. So I think I'm gonna head into the thrift and see if I can find stuff that fit into either of those sort of aesthetics or like subgenres of the aesthetic. I want to know if you guys are into the cottagecore aesthetic, or if you're just, you know, interested in it. Which one do you like more? The more pastel sort of shabby chic side, or the earth tones sort of vintage side? I guess let's go in and see what we can find. First of all, the music is so loud, so I might end up doing voiceovers. Okay, and welcome to the thrifting voiceover. So I started out in the skirt section, and right off the back, I definitely saw a ton of retro sort of vintage 80s and 90s stuff, but what we're looking for are sort of ditzy florals, ruffles, lace, earth tones, and then I also think maybe gingham might also work for cottagecore. So, you know, pastels, earth tones, ruffles, lace, and gingham. That's the objective here. Now, this one is a great color. I'm not sure about the cut for cottagecore, but it's a great vintage piece. I think because it's that A-line, very classic 1940s shaped skirt, I'm definitely going to get it, but I'm not sure that it's like the most perfect fit for cottagecore. Though I definitely think, as with any aesthetic, if there's a will, there's a way. You can find a way to finagle it, and I actually do think I end up finding some ways to finagle it to work. I'm definitely really into this green color at the moment, and I think that it can really work well for that sort of Pride and Prejudice sort of cottagecore aesthetic. Again, I think it's all in how you accessorize. Okay, so this skirt I actually think is so perfect for the cottagecore aesthetic. This can go either way, earth tones or shabby chic, but with the lace detail at the bottom and the sort of prairie skirt silhouette, I think it works so perfectly. Like, this is the skirt you see on Instagram and TikTok and like Tumblr when you think of cottagecore. It is this aesthetic. Like, holy moly, this skirt was so perfect. Now, it's not really my style, so I didn't end up getting it, but it just goes to show that on occasion you can find these gems in the thrift. This is a really cool vintage piece. Okay, this dress 100% fits within an aesthetic that I didn't touch on, or a subgenre to the cottagecore aesthetic that I didn't touch on, which is called cottagecore or dark cottagecore. Holy moly, this dress is stunning, and if it fit me, I would definitely be taking it home. So, I mean, this dress is absolutely stunning. Look at it. But basically, the dark cottagecore aesthetic plays with black flouncy dresses, and I just
I mean, it could not get more perfect than that one. This dress, however, does not at all fit within the dark cottagecore aesthetic, but it is an incredible vintage dress that I did end up bringing home. And wow, wait until you see it on, guys. Like, it is one of my favorite things I've thrifted ever. This thrift store really just had so many good vintage pieces. And so this might be the place I come back to whenever I do thrifting for vintage pieces with me. They really weren't great with like all of the cottagecore things, but I will continue to show you guys all of the cottagecore things or all of the pieces that I think could fit within the cottagecore aesthetic as we go along. Okay, so hear me out with this one. It definitely sort of looks like a flower girl dress, but it definitely fits within the shabby chic sort of vibe. It's got the really beautiful rosettes, the fun like sort of sheer tulle material, the lace. I definitely think this could be a stunning piece within the shabby chic genre of cottagecore. Okay, watching this footage back, I high-key regret not picking this up, but tell me this isn't so trendy. This is a vintage sweater set. So this is a short sleeve sweater shirt with a sweater materialed pencil skirt, and I didn't pick it up, and I think probably because I didn't think it would fit me, but looking back at it, I feel like it might have, and now I kind of wish I would have gotten it. Ugh, my gosh, so pretty. Going back to the gothic cottagecore, dark cottagecore theme, this skirt would be so perfect for that. If this were in any other color, it would also have been perfect for regular cottagecore, with the ruffle on the bottom giving it the prairie skirt silhouette. Okay, moving on to the blouse section, I actually think that there are a lot more options here. So this shirt here, I think, is the perfect silhouette with the puff sleeves and the gathers with the elasticated ruching on the sleeves. You can love or leave the embroidery, but I do think that the silhouette of this one works. And then for this one, the color palette, the embroidery on this as well is delicate enough that it works, and the floaty sleeves, I think, are absolutely perfect for cottagecore.
Yeah, I think blouses are much easier to find within the cottagecore aesthetic as opposed to like skirts and dresses at the thrift store. That doesn't seem to be happening for me, but I'll keep looking. I also just think like it's floor length or like ankle length dresses that are really popular within the aesthetic, and that stuff is hard to find sometimes. 100% this would work.
Okay, legit, this shirt is perfect. It's got the tighter bustier area, and then it's got a slight puffy sleeve, and it's elasticated like with a little cuff, which I think is so quintessentially cottagecore. I mean, this shirt is absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I would see again online. And yeah, I mean, it's again not my style, but I did just want to show you that these things do exist in the thrift.
This is definitely the right style. Again, I'm not sure on the color, but I think if you're going for like that shabby chic vibe, this would work. It's like that prairie skirt type of vibe, very floaty, perfect for running through a field.
Okay, I high-key think that this one would work. This is a floor-length gown, and it's very formal, but I kind of feel like cottagecore teeters on the line between that sometimes, and I really do think that this sort of Renaissance-inspired dress could work for cottagecore. And this color, like the celery green, impeccable.
This one too, this is perfect as well for like the more earth tone version of the aesthetic. It's a really fun brown with like the ruffly details, the puffy sleeve. To be honest, I haven't seen like a ton of like winter cottagecore outfits, but I feel like this sweater would be perfect for like a winter cottagecore outfit. It just has like all of the elements, like that sort of flouncy collar look, and it's like nice and frilly, and it's like a really like warm light, which I think works really well for cottagecore.
No joke, I must have found like 10 of this exact same cardigan in like every color you can think of, but there were a few, like this light pink one and the cream one in my hand, that I do think would work really perfect for either vintage or cottagecore. Had they been in my size, I would have grabbed probably all of them because I am such a cardigan person, and I just thought that the ruffle detail at the top was so sweet and romantic, and I really love that style, but they were all in a size small, and your girl is not a size small.
This is another thing I think you could make work. It's got like the fun flirty like ruffled sleeves. I think that this could definitely work
within the cottagecore aesthetic, the shabby chic version. This is another one that I think would work for the shabby chic version. Also gives me sort of pirate vibes with the tie at the front. I don't know. What do you think? Honestly, I think you could probably use this. I think there's definitely a way. If you leave it open over like a floaty dress, it's like that sort of grandma vintagey, sort of handmade look that cottagecore really plays with. So I think that's very cute. We found the sweater vest. This is the first time I've actually found one in stores that was sort of at least close to the aesthetic. Now, personally, this isn't really a color I wear a ton of, so I'm not gonna get it, but shocking, honestly. Here's another shirt that I think would work really well with like sort of cottagecore. I think like the little ties at the top are really romantic and I think play with that really well. It is cropped, but I think, you know, those really high-waisted long skirts are really popular within the cottagecore aesthetic. So I do think that this could work really well. Literally all of these are sweater vests. I've definitely been able to find tops. Bottoms, however, have been a bit of a struggle. I don't think I'm going to find any bottoms, and I don't think I'm going to end up finding any more dresses than what I already showed you. So it's definitely a little bit, it seems anyway, at least for my thrift store. Of course, every thrift store is different. It seems like it is a little bit difficult to thrift the cottagecore aesthetic, but of course it might be easier to do in the summer when there's different merchandise. Okay guys, it is a few days later and I'm going to show you guys all the things I got, but first, yes, I am the living embodiment of the TikTok that's like, one day after dressing vintage.
To Los Angeles. I'll have a cheeseburger, please, medium rare with fries. This is me 4 days after moving to Los Angeles. I'll have a burger, no cheese, lettuce wrap with a side salad, please. This is me 3 weeks after moving to Los Angeles. I want a quinoa salad with a whisper of goat cheese and a wellness shot on the side.
I, like, just this weekend decided I wanted to try, like, going full-fledged vintage hair, makeup, dress, and here we are. Anyway, let me show you guys what I got. So I'm gonna start with the non-wearables. So I, as usual, headed over to the linen section. I make my own clothes and I also have a small business where I make hair accessories, as you guys probably know. So these are going to be for pieces of clothing, and if I have any cabbage left over, I might use some of that for hair accessories and whatnot. But I headed over there and found a couple of pieces of fabric that I'm really excited to turn into things. So first thing is first, I got this really cool earth tones plaid. It is a combination of like, I think this is kind of like a celery green color. It's almost tan, but it's got a slight green hue, and then a sort of purpley hinted brown, and also a like shamrock green as well. There's also like creams and whites in here as well, but it's just a really nice earth tone neutral plaid material. It's a flannel material, which I absolutely love for skirts. The plan is to turn this into a skirt. This fabric cost me $3.99, so really not bad. And then this is a bed sheet, and this is also like a really beautiful green. This is definitely like a celery green color for sure. Maybe the other one's more of like a grassy green. Anyway, so this is like a really beautiful like minty celery green, and this is a queen-sized sheet that I am thinking I'm gonna turn into a really fun spring dress. So I got some time to work on it because, you know, it's winter, but the next season is spring, so I think that this would be a really, really pretty spring, summer time dress. I don't know what style of dress I want this to be quite yet, but I do have several vintage patterns, so I'll probably make something vintage looking out of this. I really feel like it's like gonna be a cute summery sort of like picnicky dress. So yeah, perhaps something along those lines. Now for the wearable things that I picked up. Okay, so the first piece I want to show you guys is this white top here. Now this piece I actually do feel like fits really well within the cottagecore aesthetic. It's really all about how you pair things. So if you paired this with like a more flouncy, like very feminine, romantic skirt, I think that you could for real make this work within that cottagecore aesthetic. This is a linen material shirt. It's a linen blend, but linen is a natural and sustainable material, so this definitely fits within the cottagecore aesthetic in that sense. It is all about sustainability and natural organic stuff, so I think that the material works really well, and I also actually think that the style works really well. It has a sort of vintage meets contemporary sort of look. It kind of reminds me of like a pirate shirt a little bit. Just like that very flouncy, puffy sleeve with a tapered arm. I don't know, it's giving me Pirates of the Caribbean, maybe like a little. Anyway,
I really like this top and I thought it was really cute. It is a slight bit too big on me. It's in a size large, so I definitely could have gotten it in a medium if that were available, but it's thrifted, so it wasn't. But nonetheless, absolutely love this shirt. I think it's really, really pretty. And like I said, I think paired either underneath a really fun like pinafore dress or with a more romantic skirt, I think that this could very easily work within the cottagecore aesthetic. I don't remember how much this was, but I think it was maybe $5. Okay, so this next piece is a vintage skirt that I actually just thrifted the same one of, just in gray, not too long ago. This is in a really beautiful foresty green. I don't know if this is just like vintage, but I feel like this could work for that sort of earth tones, you know, Pride and Prejudice sort of cottagecore. Now, it is a midi skirt. Now, the reason why I'm like sort of on the fence with this one is because like there's nothing very like romantic about it, nothing super soft about it. I mean, it's a soft material, but like there's no like lace, there's no ruffles, there's nothing like that on the skirt. But I think this is actually a really good basic for within the cottagecore aesthetic, because then you can always chuck an apron over top of it and you really got yourself a look then, because then you can introduce the ruffles and the more romantic elements with an accessory. So I do think that this would actually work as like a good base. Okay, so this is 100% cotton. It is from Land's End and is in a size medium. Actually, I don't know if that's vintage then. Land's End? Probably not that vintage. But it is in a nice vintage silhouette, so pretty happy about that. It's got pockets. It's made out of like that sweatshirt material. This fits really, really well. It's in, again, that really beautiful like foresty emerald green that I'm really loving at the moment. And yeah, I picked this up and this was half off, so it was like $3 or $2.50 or something like that. Okay, see, I feel like it's really all in how you style it. Because I feel like this could work probably within like a sort of earthy toned cottagecore sort of situation. I think the skirt length is good. I think had it had like a sort of prairie vibes or sort of like ruffle at the bottom, it would be even better. I'm trying to imagine like ruffles at the bottom of the skirt, and I feel like it would make it even more cottagecore. But I do think like just by adding like the little bow in my hair, it's like a very like beautiful, delicate floral ribbon, available in my shop, by the way. Yeah, and like with it being such like a lovely linen material and sort of, it's got like a slight puff. It's not like a huge puff, which I think big puffs would have made it even more so cottagecore, but I do think that this could work. I think it's, again, it's all about styling it. It's all about how you take pieces that seem pretty ordinary and mix it with other things that can help it look more within an aesthetic. Okay, so this next thing that I got, I don't know that this is necessarily works for like cottagecore as much as just like a cute summery top, but this I do believe is actually vintage, which is weird to me because I really don't feel like I'm used to seeing Faded Glory items in vintage. However, the tag really looks old. It looks old, and oftentimes like the vintage tags are like the really chunky white ones with the embroidery on them, and that is exactly what this one looks like. So it says authentic, established in 1972, so it is possible. I mean, the brand is old. It looks like it was made in like the 80s or in the 90s. This feels like a 90s top to me, if I'm being honest. Anyway, I think Faded Glory is a brand you can buy at Walmart still today. But this is just a really beautiful, like bluey purple gingham print tank top. It's very simple. I love it a lot. I think this will be really cute for styling some fun vintage looking summer and spring outfits. And I actually feel like you could. Again, it's all in how you pair it with other things. I do think you could make this work for a more shabby chic cottagecore look. I feel like if you put like a puffy sleeve shirt underneath this and then paired it with like a sort of fun flouncy skirt, you could easily do that, or even like a puff sleeve ruffly dress underneath it and then layered it over top, sort of like a vest. I think that that could work really well. I just think it's about being creative to sort of get the aesthetic that you want. This worked out, I think, a whole lot better than I thought. First of all, the shirt is missing a button and I didn't realize, and also it's a little tight in the boob area. Button-up shirts don't always tend to really like this area, and I think this is a common issue for a lot of women. Shirts just are not made with enough fabric up here, but then they fit well everywhere else. So this fits perfectly around my midsection, perfectly up here, and in my, like on my back there's no gapping, which is really good, but it's just like the tiniest bit too tight up here. But I honestly slipped this on over my head. So this again would be one of those moments where I would feel fine with like sewing a straight line down the middle of the fabric. This is a trick that I do all the time with button-up shirts that pull a little bit, but that I'm able to slip on over my head. I'll just line everything up and then just sew down the seam line, and that way you have no issue and it won't pull apart anymore. So I'll probably actually end up going in and doing that as well with this. But I just paired it with this really flouncy skirt. This is a tiered prairie skirt. I thrifted this a few years ago. This is one of my favorite thrifted finds of all time. And yeah, this is an outfit I am 100% going to be wearing in the summer. This is very cottagecore to me, actually. I think that this works with this skirt. And I also have a little bow clip in my hair. This is one I made out of clay and then just attached to a clip. I think it works really well. And then if you really want to like amp it up, this is an outfit that this apron works for. See, and I think that this works really well. If this were the right size apron, it would look even better. But I shrank it in the wash, so it's a little bit small. But generally speaking, you get the idea, I think.
Okay, the last thing is not at all cottagecore, but it was so beautiful and so incredible. I couldn't leave it at the thrift store. So I actually posted a picture of myself on Instagram wearing this on my Instagram stories. So if you're not following me over there, check me out on Instagram so you can be in the know. This is a vintage piece, and I am really trying to build up my vintage wardrobe. I only have a good handful of vintage pieces. I think I only have 3 vintage dresses, and this is the 3rd one. So this is from Petite Precisions by Trent B. It is in a 12 petite. It is 75% rayon, 25% polyester, and was made in the Philippines. This was a really popular style in the 80s and 90s. I do believe that this was made in the 1980s based on the material and the tag, and also the piping. It also looks like there may have at one point been shoulder pads in here, but they were unfortunately potentially removed. This was, I do believe, somewhere around the $6 or $7 mark. It was the most expensive thing that I got, but it is so beautiful. I'm like 5'3", 5'4", and I do think like 5'2" is sort of the petite cutoff. So I'm like maybe a slight bit too tall for petite, but for whatever reason, petite stuff works really well on me, so I guess maybe I just have a short torso and long legs, I don't know. However, because this was petite, it was quite a bit like tighter in the area where my thighs and butt landed in the dress. So what I ended up doing was sewing a seam from where the buttons end, because this is a double-breasted dress, so there are buttons right here as well, so this is where it closes. And from where the last button is, I ended up just sewing a seam down the front of the dress. You can't see it because it's in black, and so is the dress. But it was just the only way I could get it to work without it sort of like spreading at the bottom. And while this could have been worn as a jacket, I liked how it looked more as a dress, and so that is what my solution was. And I think it worked out well, and I don't plan on getting rid of this dress anytime soon, so I don't foresee it being an issue, having added the seam in there. So like I was saying before, this dress was presumably made in the 80s, though this style of double-breasted dress was first popularized in the 20s and 30s. So it's cool that this is like an 80s dress that is also paying homage to an earlier decade. This also sort of reminded me of a flight attendant dress. I really like it. This is super cute. I love the black and white coloring. I love the piping, and I love the fabric buttons, and I just thought it was so darling, and I am so glad I didn't leave it, because normally when it comes to vintage sizing, I would go up 1 or 2 sizes, because vintage versus contemporary sizing is very, very different. But on this occasion, I decided to chance it, and I'm so glad I did, because it fits pretty well.
Okay, this last piece is my favorite thing that I thrifted. It is a little tight on the booty and thighs area, though I do actually think it is made to be that tight. It is meant to be like a tight squeezer. And it was also quite a bit boobalicious, so I actually took a safety pin and pinned it together because like I just don't fill it out as much. I did my hair back up in this like sort of pin-up sort of style because I just felt like it looked cool like this. Something about this reminds me of A, old school flight attendants, and then B, World War II nurses. I absolutely love this. I think it's so pretty. I think that it's incredibly well fitting, pretty flattering. I feel really pretty in this, and I think that's all that matters. Clothes are meant to accessorize you and how beautiful you are, and I just feel like this is a perfect way to accessorize me. I feel very like adult, and like I'm 24, and it makes me just feel like, I don't know, very like cool, and I feel like a power woman in this. I don't know, something about it is making me feel very like powerful and beautiful, and I think that's sort of, to me, like the power of vintage clothes. Vintage fashion really makes me feel very beautiful and cool and confident and just powerful, and I don't know, there's something about it that just feels very classy and classic, and I quite like it.
I was so happy with all the things that I got, and I also I found it to be really insightful to see all the different types of things we could find at the thrift store in regards to the cottagecore aesthetic. I will say, I think my thrift store that I usually go to probably would have more pieces that fell within the cottagecore aesthetic, especially because I live in a rural town, whereas I was in like a sort of posh area where I went and thrifted and picked up this stuff. I think in the future I might try this again, thrifting for cottagecore stuff, and try it at my Goodwill and see what happens there. And then whenever I decide to do like thrifting for vintage, this is definitely the Goodwill to go to. They had so many cool vintage pieces, and I have in the past found really cool vintage pieces there as well, so I knew that there was going to be some fun vintage stuff. But yeah, overall I'm really happy with everything that I got. I'm excited to continue to play with these things and style them, to make some new pieces of clothing for myself. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought. What other things do you guys want me to thrift for? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below if you are new. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Don't forget it costs absolutely nothing to be kind. So be kind to yourself and others, and I'll see you next week. Bye!